Okay, I disagree with everybody. Thursday morning debate about Brock Purdy being top 10, and I think everyone's getting it a little bit wrong. This is why when I heard Jed York say what he said the other day about Brock being top 10 combined with, I knew it was going to be a thing. So let's break this down piece by piece, why Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback, despite the fact that Jed York is right about him.
He knows that the only reason you can make an argument that Brock Purdy is a top 10 guy is because of Kyle Shanahan, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel.
All right, I disagree with all three people. You heard Danny Parkins, there's Craig Carton, there's Mark Schlereth. I disagree with Danny Parkins that I'll get to the part I disagree with Danny Parkins on. Where I disagree with Craig Carton and Schlereth when he's, he didn't say, that's not what he was saying. That is what Jed York is saying. Before we get deeper into what Danny Parkins said on Thursday about Brock and top 10, let's go back a couple of days. Here's what Jed York said.
Especially when you combine him with Kyle and you combine him with what we have, he's a heck of a quarterback.
And here's what I said in response to that earlier in the week. I don't think there's much debating that, but I think it's an insightful piece of what their negotiation might involve. Okay, so now let's go back to today.
Especially when you combine.
Now Danny Parkins is getting into this thing. Why Brock Purdy's not a top 10 quarterback.
With Kyle and the other pieces that we have here, I think he's great. That's the issue with Brock Purdy. Is he, by himself, individually, evaluating an individual within a team sport, a top 10 guy?
Here's what I would say. There's only 5 of those guys. Before I get on to more Danny Parkins, there aren't 10 quarterbacks. The position is so hard, and it relies on so much. Talk to anybody that's played quarterback. They all understand how hard it is to do it on your own. And there's not many guys that can. In fact, there's only like 4 or 5 that you can just put on any team and they'll just be the same guy. And that's the problem. I love a top 10 list. I actually think Mike Sando's list this year is going to be fascinating when it comes to Purdy. I'll get to that in a second. But that's the problem with top 10 lists, is that what qualifies the top 4 guys, the top 5 guys, is not what qualifies guys 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'll show it to you in a second. But Danny Parkins, while he's making the anti-Purdy argument here, shows it to us, because when he says Purdy's top 10, the argument then has to become, or he's not top 10, it actually has to become he's not top 5.
You have him as a top 5 guy. I think that's crazy. But all the
agree. Let's go on.
That Jed York puts on it, I was just like, well, let's do a little experiment. Let's talk about the guys that I would say are clear-cut top 5 guys and see if their guys have to put these qualifiers. Here's John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. Okay. Let's see how Sean.
All right, now this part I edited. It already started a little bit, but I edited this part in the interest of time because he's not top 10. Let's see how the owners talk about top 5 guys when they sign them. Do they qualify?
Have to put these qualifiers. Here's John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. Okay. Let's see how Sean McDermott talks about Josh Allen. How the Bengals were talking about Joe Burrow in 2021. Brett Veach. He's one of the best I've ever seen.
On Mahomes. That's the list. That's tier 1. Those are the guys. That's the whole list of guys you could just put on any team. I actually think sneaky Stafford somehow makes his way near them. But that is the top 5. Those are the guys. That's it. Top 4, top 5. That's the list.
That the only reason you can make an argument that Brock Purdy is a top 10 guy is because of Kyle Shanahan, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey.
All right. In years where you argued Dak or Jalen Hurts or Trevor Lawrence or Jordan Love or Jared Goff or Aaron Rodgers, not on this list anymore, unfortunately. Tom Brady, gone. When those guys were around, the list was a little longer on guys you could plug in. But now the list isn't 10. So the idea that you could just say, well, he needs a good coach and good supporting cast, or else he's not top 10. Without it, that means he's not top 10. There aren't 10. Here's a few different things I've put together. First, we have a list of the guys who have appeared more than once in the top 10 of touchdowns thrown in each of the last 3 years. 12 guys have been in the top 10 twice. Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen. All right, now let's get some other guys. Is Jared Goff top 10 without a good supporting cast? Is Baker? Is Jordan Love? Is CJ Stroud? Stafford? Yes. Is Dak Prescott? Is Jalen Hurts? Is Trevor Lawrence? So to me, this list, and there's more lists we could go through. Let's go through the Mike Sando QB tiers. I said, let's just see who are the guys that appear the last 3 years the most in the top 10. Well, this one kicked back CJ Stroud. I said, well, that's not right. Let's get rid of Stroud because he's only been in the league 1 year, and let's look at the last 3 and let's come up with a top 10 average ranking. Oh, look. If you filter the last 10 years, guess who's 10th? Brock Purdy. Mahomes is 1. This is why Sando's list is great because he breaks it into tiers. But Mahomes is 1, Burrow 2, Josh Allen 3, Lamar Jackson 4. What do you know? It's the same list that Danny just had. Those are the top 4 guys. That's it. Then it's got Stafford. Oh, what do you know? Herbert. I love Herbert, but we're still kind of betting on what it could be. Rodgers, Dak, Jared Goff. To quote Cowherd, folks, there isn't 10 guys that can do it without a supporting cast and then be quote unquote top 10. 2 years ago in 2023, this is what these are some of the quotes that Mike Sando got about Brock Purdy when he talks to GMs and coaches and all that. One person said, when I looked at him, I thought he was a tier 4 guy, but when you watch the kid play, he's a gamer. He has the intangibles, the moxie, the want to, the leadership. Somebody else said, an offensive coach, you put him on any other team and they lose more than half their games. They got the best rushing offense, a top defense. He doesn't make mistakes. He makes some plays with his legs. He gets the ball out. Good for him. The next year we go, this is going into last year. I honestly think you could debate calling him a 1. He's really underrated. Kyle Shanahan deserves a lot of credit, but there still has to be somebody at the switch. The reality of any success, and Danny said at the beginning of that clip, is it is a team game. And there are exceptions, but for the most part, the championships are won with the best quarterbacks and the best coaches and the best defensive player. Like, for the most part, the best teams. You don't do it with a bad coach. You don't do it with a bad quarterback. You don't do it without a defense. Somebody else said, I would slide him out to the top 3. I'm not sold on the universal skill set for varying systems, but for their system and their offense, they greatly capitalize on his abilities. That's a credit to the coaching staff. I agree. Most guys, you can't just put on any team in any system with any supporting cast and go win 10 games. This is where I say, like, Stafford is not those other guys, but I kind of feel like you could throw Stafford on a lot of teams and just have a shot. But there aren't, that is the nature of being elite, of being plug and play at quarterback. There aren't 10 guys like you. And right now there's 4. So what's the debate? Is the debate, is he top 5? Is the debate, is he Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow? That's not a debate. There is no debate. Is the debate, is he top 10? That's a real debate. And yeah, in a given year, he is. Will he be this year? I don't know. Partly depends on the whole thing. But this is where we go back. Like, I don't think he was that different last year than the year before. And that feeds the argument of he's somewhat dependent on his coach and the talent around him. Right. But that doesn't invalidate you from being viewed as a good player. There are far more quarterbacks that you can put in solid situations and have them fail than there are quarterbacks that you can put in solid to good situations and have them succeed. And those are the guys that populate the league from spots like 7 to 14, where they're not as good as the top tier guys, but they kind of make you wish they were, but they make it look good enough that you think anybody could just step in and do it. And as we know, that is not the case. That is not the case. So is he top 10? Yeah. Yes. To me, he's like 9 to 11 to 12. Like he's top 10. Is he top 10 the last 3 years? He is. Yes, he is. Will he be this year? That's somewhat dependent on the other players. Is he ever going to be a top 4 guy? Probably not. Does that mean he's not top 10? Last I checked, no. 4 and 10 are two different things. So this is where it gets a little. And by the way, you can acknowledge what Jed York said as being reality and also say he's a top 10 quarterback, which is what I'm saying. He's borderline. I somehow all of that is controversial. But as you can see, like you have to kind of move things around. Oh, it's not what they said about Mahomes. Oh, you mean perhaps the greatest quarterback of all time? They talked about him differently. It's not what they said about Burrow, the number 1 pick. It's not what they said about Josh Allen, the greatest development quarterback story of the last, I don't know, as many years as I can think of. It's not what they said about Lamar Jackson, generational talent. Okay. So what do you think? Is he top 10? Is Jed York right? Would he be the same quarterback on the Browns? Yes. Yes. Probably not. But he's not on the Browns. Just like Joe Montana did play for Bill Walsh. And Tom Brady did play for Bill Belichick. If he hadn't played for Belichick, all we're ever trying to do with anybody in anything is maximize their abilities. And I think far, far, far more people are system quarterbacks than anybody realizes. And so system quarterback becomes a knock when the reality is it's just a way to say when everything lines up and allows you to be at your best, how good are you? And the answer with Brock Purdy is better than most, just not the tier 1 guy. And that's pretty good. Top 10 changes every year, by the way.